Welcome to the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art Plus 234 Connect Festival. This festival is inspired by Chioma Ude Nollywood Portraits and Before Nollywood Ideal Portrait Studio. Both of those exhibitions are right behind you, so please check them out. And this program today is titled Global Nollywood and Africa, Global Africa and Nollywood. And so I'm going to start with introducing our two panelists. First, we have Dame Taiwo Ajai-Lycett. Dame Taiwo Ajai-Lycett is a veteran Nigerian actress of stage and screen, noted for her vivid portrayal of strong African women. With an acting career spanning more than 5 decades, she's made her debut in 1967 at UK's avant-garde Royal Court Theatre in London. Trained at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, City Literary Institute, the Dance Centre, and the Actors Studio London. Ajay-Lycett is a card-carrying member of the British Actors Equity Union. Her stage credits include Connor Cruise, O'Brien's Murderous Angels, and Dublin Theatre Festival, of which O'Brien said, "Rarely has an actress done so much for a part with so little help from the author." Okay, so that's Miss Taiwo Ajai-Lycett. We're gonna welcome her to the stage. Next up, we would like to welcome Tope Ocean. Tope is an award-winning filmmaker who has developed, written, directed, and produced some of the most prominent and successful films and TV content in Nigeria, including Up North, The Wedding Party 2, Tinsel, Castle Castle. Her extensive creative and impactful work behind and in front of the camera in the motion picture industry spans over 25 years. Oshin is a big fan of using art for advocacy and the power of mass media and culture to affect and change the mindsets positively, which is evident in her work over the years with MTV, Staying Alive Foundation, and the BBC. Please welcome Tope Ocean. Well, thank you for joining us, ladies. Yeah, so I think today what we really want to talk about, for the most part, is really how has Nollywood impacted global Africa, the world, but Africa as a whole. And because this panel was intentionally all women, we also want to talk about women in Nollywood. And so I'll start with you, Tope. So your film, Here Love Lies, we screened last night. And there's a lot of tones and stories and storylines in Here Love Lies about women. Can you tell us why, first tell us about Here Love Lies. Tell us some of the storyline and why it was important for you to touch on things like abortion, dating, and those types of things in your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So Here Love Lies premiered here last night. Actually, that's the first screening ever, public screening that is, it's been in consideration here and there. Here Love Lies, as you rightly said, is a story of a woman. It's a story of a lot of women. Within the Nigerian sphere, within Africa itself. Amanda, who is the lead of the film, is a representation of single, mature women who are not usually represented a lot in romantic comedies or love stories or films in general. So this story talks about the struggles of single mothers, talks about the struggles of mature women who are trying to date, who are trying to look for love, the societal pressure of pushing them to get married at whatever the cost is, irrespective of whatever success they are experiencing in their life in other areas or their careers or whatever. Like we saw, Amanda was, successful in her career, but she didn't feel like she was complete because there was no man in her life, and she had a child that, she was trying to hide just because she believed that that wasn't her way of settling down. And so she made a lot of stupid choices, even when everything was glaring, but her eyes were fixed on what she felt was the societal pressure of getting hooked at whatever the cost was. Here Love Lies deals with themes such as, like we rightly mentioned, mature dating, single parenthood, also very strongly family estrangement, which exists within, I would say, the entire world, not just Africa, not just Nigeria. It's something that has happened to a lot of people, that has set lives apart, and it's something that I wanted to deal with and talk about and, look at the far-reaching effects of that. Also within the film, we dealt with racism and stereotyping. The idea that, probably people from Nigeria are a particular way, or Asian people are a particular way, or whatever. Basically, we wanted to break that bias that they're good people and they're bad people, period. It's that black people don't behave a particular way, or white people a particular way, or whatever. And what else? Also, definitely we touched on tourism, which for me was still within, coming from the flow of my previous film, which is Up North, which was heavily on tourism and other social issues. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we tried to, those are the themes we tried to discuss and talk about within Here Love Lies. Properly defined, we'll call it a mixed genre film, but it's a romantic psychological thriller, in that it's a love story which is embedded in all sorts of other emotional stories as well, and takes you on that emotional journey through the eyes of Amanda.
And so you've been making many films over the years, as well as Taiwo. Can you both tell us, when making a decision about playing a character, and in your case as well, and your case, Ms. Taiwo, actually casting an actress or creating a character, what are some of the things that you look for in women? And saying, yes, I want to play this character because she's a strong woman, or yes, I want to play this character because she's kind of defying their eyes in some ways. Can you tell us about that? And Taiwo, I know you've made decisions to play strong women, so I'd love to hear from both of you on that.
I have an ideological, sensitivity to people portraying women as weak, because I believe that the world moves with women, or women cause the world to move. They raise us, they conceive us there, they nurture us there, and they bring us out, and then they populate the world. I actually believe that God came down as a woman and proceeds to populate the world. Now, who is stronger than God? You have the child, you nurture the child, and you are on that child's case till you die. It's not the same for fathers. So I have an objection to people thinking that women are, thank you very much, women are the weaker sex. Brawn isn't everything. Women are the thinkers. Men like to think that they're the intellectuals. But women are very powerful. And you can see how they manipulate men. Because if a man thinks that he's the head of the family, they allow him to fool himself, to live in that delusion. And so they get on with it. So women get on with it. And I want women to realize the power they possess. And so, even when I'm playing weak women, as Paul says, in my weakness is my strength. That's what a woman is. And so, you can portray women like that. I chose to show women as they are. As I said, I'm an evangelist, a culture evangelist, for people to see what women are capable of, and to actually identify them. The only people who don't know themselves are the women themselves. So I don't believe in fighting men for power. I think we already have the power. And I want women to know that they possess the power, and stop playing little fragile creatures. They're not fragile. Have you seen, we all know about how multitasking women can be, yeah?
Yes,
So
for sure.
I like playing women, and women are, well, demonized in very many ways, and marginalized. And so, women trafficking, men are taking advantage of their physical brawn, physical power to subjugate women. I mean, physically. And so all the political issues of women I want to face. Why does a man, for instance, rape a woman? Power. And that's a sickness that affects not just women, it affects the society as a whole. When we bring up men who feel that in order for them to attract the attention of women, they have to exert that power. So,
Yes.
women trafficking, child marriages, all that kind of nonsense, I'm in the war for that, to face them.
Yes, and that makes me think about both of you seeing the evolution of Nollywood and Nigerian cinema over the years. Do you feel that those images and those representations of women are better now? Do you see an evolution in that? I know we also talked about, actually when we were in Nigeria, Taiwo, about how many women in Nollywood are in roles of power or decision-making positions, and they're doing some of the most amazing productions. So I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are about that. You know, the Moabudus, Chioma Ude, you all as well, really powering the industry forward. And yeah, well, yeah, yeah, for both of you, yeah.
Okay, so definitely I would say that the portrayal of women in Nollywood has changed a lot from, way back when Nollywood started. And for me, that was one of the things that I wanted to change. At the point when I moved from being an actor to being a director and producer, part of my focus was to represent women in a strong way, to represent women as we are. Not just, create an illusion of what isn't, because women are strong. And like Mommy said, we need to see ourselves as we are. Otherwise, we would be a part of the problem, So for me, if you've noticed, usually whatever if I'm working as a director for hire, whatever scripts I choose to direct or whatever I'm working on personally needs to have those elements of women having agency and making decisions by themselves that affect their own lives, and not waiting on men or the men in their lives or their husbands or whatever to make those decisions for them. And I feel like, moving forward, that's what we need to continuously do to correct what has been done wrong, to help women to see themselves as they are, and, to even help us tap into the strengths that we have. Back in the day, on the Nollywood films in the beginning, that Nigeria grew up on, usually you would find women as the antagonists, and not even antagonists in leading roles. They're like the wicked mistress, the wicked stepmother, the girlfriend who wants to destroy somebody's marriage. They're always just very much negatively portrayed. They're always the cause of the downfall of the man who is always the lead. But now what we are trying to do is to create stories that have female leads, not because we are being unnecessarily feminist, but because this is real life. Like I mentioned last night, it is real life. We are in leading positions in life. We are leading corporations, we are leading industries. Right now, Nollywood is heavily led by women. That is a fact. The biggest festivals we have are being led by women. The awards bodies, the biggest producers, you mentioned Moabudu, you mentioned Chioma Ude, you mentioned a whole lot of people. Jadisola Oshiberu, Kemi Adetiba, they're all women. Yeah. You're talking about the biggest movies that are released from Nigeria every year. Most of them are women. Mm-hmm. So why do we keep, thinking that, like Mommy said, we are the weaker sex, or we are the other sex? That's not reality. So it's time for us to start telling those stories that way, and that's pretty much what we've started doing. Our stories have moved a lot from that point of us being just girlfriends and mistresses to actually leading characters that are taking agency and making decisions about their lives. And, for me, that's a great, great improvement in the direction of Nollywood, and I feel like, we can only get better. Yes, we do still have a few movies that I personally have looked at and I'm like, we could have done better here, even movies produced by women. I have personally rejected to work on some as producer or director because I felt like the messaging was confused, where it had to do with representing women. Like, why do people have to abuse, the female characters and then they get away with it? If we are not going to amend this storyline, then I do not want to be a part of this because I'm going to have to speak to this. I'm going to have to put my spirit into this to tell the story. Do I believe in this? Do I want to perpetrate this evil? No. Yes, it's a story, but stories are real and they affect people in real life. So I would rather not put my name or my art into something that doesn't help push us forward and make, humanity better.
Got an amen over there.
Yes, well, I rest my case. Without any fight from men, the reality is coming to fore. More women are in charge. And therefore, I want to challenge you guys about what we do to inspire our population, our girl children, what we do to protect our girl children, what we do to inspire them to know that they have a responsibility, what we do to convince them that they should not be parasites to themselves, to society, and to their men. And for the movie makers themselves to stop objectifying women, to stop sexualizing women, because it seems from what I see now, it's only the external physical beauty that we're projecting. I'd like us to project what I know the women are: cerebral. They're thinking animals. However, whatever the level of education they have, get a girl, a teen, 18, 19-year-old married to a 25, 30-year-old man, and go and see that couple in 5 years' time. That girl is grown. That's the nature of the beast. It is grown further than the husband. The husband is still throwing his underwear all over the place. They're still picking up after him. He's still the first son in the family. And they revert to childhood. They go back, okay? But the woman, the responsibility put on her makes her grow. And she picks up the challenge and grows. And that girl is no longer that same person who married 5 years ago. Now, that's fascinating to watch. Now, why are we then still having this business of daddy does everything, daddy is the God? I'm not having a fight about what a man is. A marriage is about partnership. This head that I don't like as projecting, without the neck, and a strong neck for that matter, the head doesn't survive, does it? So what I see now, people banding their backside around, flashing their boobs about, all the externals that had imprisoned our intelligence before are still oppressing. And this is what you have at the girls. And so you look at them, the first things they're looking at, they're not worried about changing the world. I like girls to know that they can change the world. They can certainly change their world. So, and you can do that. I believe that entertainment has the capacity to change our world. And that's the challenge I'm going to place on you. You've directed me on television.
I've had the honor.
Before. And you know how I feel about my work. Okay. Now, what are we doing about younger women? What are we doing about women? Because when a woman gets old, she becomes invisible. Why are older people invisible? Why don't they have any life anymore? And that is perverse, because in our society, our older people are revered, aren't they? for the necessarily and quite rightly for the experience they've garnered in the course of their journey in life. So why is it all about youth and, well, they think it's beauty, but actually I find there is a little bit of absence of aesthetics in approaching what we're doing. Because if we're waving our butt around, what's so aesthetic about that? But are we addressing really the nature of beauty, which is not necessarily external?
Yeah. And that makes me think about, too, do you think that Hollywood and Western stories that the world has seen for many years is having an impact on some of the stories that are being told in Nollywood from Nigeria, let's say that, to either fit into the context to be sold or to be seen by more people? Any thoughts on that at all?
Well, Nigeria, to a large extent, has always been influenced by Western culture, even though we're colonized by the British. But you know how it is, pop culture and everything. So, generally people want to be cool and everything. So there is, that transference, which you will also see in our music videos, which bothers me a whole lot. I was in a conversation, I think, a month ago, and, we were talking about music videos and what movies are looking like they're becoming. And it occurred to me that now the women are not just being objectified. Young women are now offering themselves up to be objectified and seeing it as being flattering. Yeah. I think it was a movie I saw or something, and a young lady was being told, someone was greeting her or something. A guy was greeting her, and then he did this to her, that she should turn around. And she turned around, flaunting everything. And I'm like, when I was growing up, how I was raised as a teenager, if a guy did that to you and told you to turn around, he was going to get a slap. Yeah. But she smiled and she found it so flattering, like, he's checking me out. And this is what is becoming the culture from, watching music videos, and it's all about objectifying women. And I'm thinking to myself, these girls that are in, the G-strings and, scantily clad, how do they feel? Have they now come to a point where they now see this as normal? It has become the normal that I have it, I flaunt it. And when you talk about my boobs or you talk about my ass or whatever, then you are appreciating me and admiring me. But we were not raised by our mothers like that. In Africa, wherever we are, we were not raised like that. We were raised to cover up. We were raised that, we should be appreciated for what is up here, but it looks like it's changing. So what are we tasking ourselves with as entertainers now, as people telling these stories? How are we changing this mindset? What are we doing? Are we perpetuating it, or are we consciously trying to change it? When I take on a story to direct, or I'm, directing something, and I see, scenes with nudity or scenes with unnecessary love scenes, the first question I ask is this needed? How does it aid the story? Does it, if we take this out, is the story complete or not? Why is the woman the one that has to be nude? Do we need this nude? Do we need this? Do we need to see her in the bathroom and then you're showing me everything? What does that have to do with the story? Is the question I always ask. And whenever I say this, they're like, oh, you don't know, things are changing, sex sells, people want to see the nudity. I said, okay, in that case, why are we not seeing the nudity of the men? Mm-hmm. Why is it just the girls, Yeah. And why do we even need to see the nudity at all? Is this the story we're telling? How is this affecting anything? How is this part of the entertainment? So this is our responsibility, and now, as the storytellers, how do we change this? How does each person know that it's our responsibility? Not just as women who are telling the stories, but everybody in general, because every man has a wife, has a mother, has a sister. That could be your mom, sister, wife. So don't think of it in terms of another girl that I'm ogling and I want to see, her body and everything. That could be my sister, that could be my mother. How can I contribute to changing this narrative, and changing things?
Yeah, really important, very, very powerful. And also to make a point, and I have one more question, and I'm going to go to the audience for questions. The point that you made, Taiwo, about age and beauty, and that's so important. I think we often forget about that, and just as a culture and as people. But I wanted to just kind of get you all's thought on, we're in America, right? And this museum is also about being a conduit between African American people and Africa. And then seeing a movie like Woman King, I'm not sure if you both have seen it yet, but as an African American woman, it's amazing to see yourself on screen in that way, to be able to fight and be a warrior and all of that. So I wonder what, for you as filmmakers and as actresses, what connections or thoughts do you have about African American women and bridging that gap between you all through stories, through film, through Nollywood?
African American women have always influenced our psyche over there. I'm more concerned about us influencing, getting the traffic the other way around. I'm more concerned about the African Americans actually appreciating what we are, what we do, how important this continent is, and how important the art and the crafts and entertainment is for us. We've always been interested in our sisters in the diaspora. There isn't any doubt about that. We mimic them, we emulate them, we copy them, almost to a nauseating part, yes. We want to be them. And that's what I challenge. In order to make that connection that you're talking about, African women, African art had to be exposed to this side of the divide for them to connect, be proud of who we are. At the moment, they want us to see who they are. I think they need to see who we are. I'm not blaming them. I'm saying we're not doing enough to project this journey, to project it and to project the images that we want. Woman King. Viola Davis was talking was talking about how her consciousness was awakened by the dances and the movement that they did there. Well, these are the things that Africa offers. But the Americans have appropriated that, not blaming them. I think that's very clever of them to see that. But I want our women to see the value and the pride in what we do, and then project and package. Packaging is everything. We're not packaging ourselves sufficiently, and that's because we're not thinking seriously to structure what we're doing for us to connect with international, to connect on the international showbiz landscape. We're doing our own thing. We're copying people. We don't have to be African Americans. We're Africans, and we live in a global village. We should live in a global village. So we don't have to ape, sorry for that word, it's anybody, but we are doing now because of how we want to be sophisticated, we want to be hip, and we think African American are very hip, they're very cool, and we all want to be cool. There's nothing cooler than an African woman, but they don't know that. I'd like them to know that. And because that then will create this connection that we're all seeking to make with one another. You talked about the older women. I'd like our people to start, I think we're floundering around right now because it is good that the young think they own the world. that they have a vision for the world, fantastic. But they also have to have a realization that some people were before them. If you don't know your history, you're not going to be able to own your present. And even the future you cannot own because you don't know what's happening. But what you do in the present will determine what happens to you in the future. So if you just ignore your older people as not being strong anymore, not being glamorous or whatever, and you think it's only the youth, your youngsters are not learning from. We're talking about the industry. Your youngsters, you guys are not linking with the old people. Your scripts are not mirroring real life. Where we come to that, script writing is not literate enough. I'm sorry, I'm going to be brutal, because I think you can take it. It's not, we have to be more literate than we are. But as I keep saying, you cannot give what you don't have. And I think we are in a hurry. We're in the 21st century, and nobody is waiting for us. So that connection has to be acquired through knowledge, through education, through humility, because we started, and we're doing very well now. There's a tendency to feel that we know it all. No. Because if you're not curious, if you're not literate and curious and humble, we're just going to be running around chasing our own tail. Thank you.
Yes. And I think, even more on the positive side of that, I think because of Nollywood and the world being able to see these movies now, really see them on this side as an African-American woman, it makes us want that connection even more, the connection we never had, So I think Nollywood has a major impact on the world, on both sides. And I just want to throw it to the audience. Anyone have any questions? Any questions? No questions? Yes, one question.
Thanks, this is absolutely inspiring. But I did want to ask, as a filmmaker looking forward and thinking of new challenges that are going to push the industry in directions perhaps that it hasn't wanted to go, what are you thinking you might most want to tackle that would move into new terrains? There are some African filmmakers that have argued that although there are enormous challenges, it's vital to tell serious gay, lesbian, and queer stories. Others have said it's time, speaking of the Women King, to really critically explore questions of accountability in the slave trade, that complexify the stories about poverty and all the folks that have been left behind by West African economic miracles. As you look ahead, and if you could get the financing and do just what you want to do, what would you do that no one else has dared to do?
Well, I would make more socially conscious stories. That's really what I care about. That's pretty much what I've tried to do with most of my career. While you have to have a good balance of the commercial, as well as your ideals, which is how I've tried to balance my career over the past 20 years, at the point now where I can even more consciously choose what I put my voice to and what I decide to direct. And that's where I want to move to, more stories that talk about what we're going through, who we are as a people. While I love entertainment, I believe that entertainment has the power to change. We can load those stories with exactly what we are trying to say. Pride in being African, pride in our Black stories. There's a lot of reactions about, for instance, the Woman King. But as a filmmaker, I'm in the cinema and I'm thinking to myself, why is there the outcry? Why are there so many reactions? Have we sat and decided to tell our stories, our origin, in this deep a way? Why are we telling stories that are just on the surface, just happy rom-coms, and let's just laugh? There's so many stories to be told. So if I had the finances, if I had the support and backing, I would tell more socially conscious stories. I would tell more stories that represent us as Africans, the origin of who we are to our roots, not trying to copy Americans or trying to copy the British, but who we are, our values, and things that are affecting us in the world today, and basically mirroring ourselves to us and see how we can move from there and change the younger ones coming, what is going on right now, and even inspire, the world out there. So that for me would be my ideal and wish if my dreams came true, like you said.
Another question? Oh.
Thank you. This has been awesome. My name is Tolumide. I'm actually a singer based in the DMV, trying to get myself into the film, sync, music industry. But I wanted to segue from something you mentioned about financing, and just to ask about how you do go about financing. I imagine there's a lot of running around trying to probably get sponsorship, or just how you're able to do that, and what avenues are you finding for the future that you can possibly tap into to get some of the stories you want to do told. Thank you. Thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So at the moment, 95% of our stories and films are personally financed. That is the state of the industry. That was our origin. That's what we're still keeping on. Seated here is Mimi, who is trying to hide out. Mimi is head of production at one of our biggest, if not the biggest distribution outlets in Nigeria, Film One. And she knows very much about it. She'll probably answer this question better than I can. But that's the reality of the industry. It's very, very much personally funded. So you see movies coming out, the money's coming from the pockets of the producers, except you then have a pre-sale deal. Maybe you've been able to secure an original or something, which is like very recent in the past 2 to 3 years. But most of what we do and what we've done are either collaborations or coming out strictly out of your pocket. So it's really my money, the story I want to tell. I don't care about anything else. And that's how we've operated, that's how we've built what we have. But moving into the future, we are hoping that things are going to change. We have the streaming platforms coming in now with money and pre-commissioning movies and series. Let's see how that model works, hopefully, and we hope that will keep expanding and we can start to get more investments and financing opportunities for films in Nigeria. But at the moment, it's very, very much personally funded.
If I may just add a little bit to what you're saying. We may never reach nirvana at this rate, which takes me back to what I said about literacy and writing and script writing. This business, we're only really going to take off when we're writing about our conditions and our place. And it's seen to be mobilizing people, inspiring the population, mobilizing them, galvanizing them. That's how you can attract, I think, good funding from people who want to be associated with that. Because ours is a massive market, right? And business people will be interested in standing next to a good product. And structure. You're quite right. I've always believed that culture is the major thing. That's the biggest currency any country has. Politics, isn't it? But a lot of us think it's politics. Your Actors Guild are going around romancing people in Aso Rock. It's a bloody waste of time. Ideas. Generate ideas that will excite people to say, yes, I like that. But it's a question do we have those ideas? And therefore, I think we're going to have to go to the drawing board. We're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to train people. We're going to get rid of this arrogance which tells us that I know what I'm doing. I don't think we know what we're doing, but until we have that humility to examine exactly what we're packaging, how ephemeral and how insubstantial it is. This is not an abuse. No, I'm saying this more in sorrow than in anger. We have to do that. Take this country during the war. They make special films just to galvanize, just to have the population behind the government to prosecute this war. That's the situation. That's the situation that entertainment should be. Where those in government will be chasing the entertainment industry to help them educate, enlighten the general population and get them behind good issues. That's what we should be doing. At the same time, we're entertaining them. Not about wearing Louis Vuitton and which kind of clothes they're going to, because that's what we're doing now. And that's not what life is about. We're going to be able to get the attention of more sophisticated minds with that level of menu that we're offering people. So we want to make films that will, what was it? I was reading a story. There was an accident. A bird, a car crushed a bird, and a little boy saw that and called 911 that there'd been a fatal accident. And 911 came and saw that it wasn't what they thought it was a bird. They proceeded to treat it as a real issue. The ambulance came and got the bird, and they did that. This little boy witnessed all this. Now, long story short, what they produced in front of that boy has made a socially conscious boy, a compassionate boy, and sent a message to people, young people who would see that sort of thing. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about, where you set up the light bulb in people's heads. We want to be doing things like that. We want to address our political situation, our leadership situation. We want to address corruption. We talk a great deal about that, but we want to say that, could we go this way? How do we raise worthy leaders? Are we making films like that? No. But that's our responsibility. Do you know we're in a war zone in Africa right now? People think that everything is normal. It is a war situation we're in, and we have to be on top of our job. Thank you. So in order to attract the kind of finances we want to have issues that grab people's heart and minds and make them come to join forces with entertainment to get the people rise and inspired. Thank you.
Well, it's been an honor having both you all here with us tonight. We got one more Mimi, yes. Let's hear from Mimi. This is Mimi Bartel. She's head of production at Film One in Nigeria.
I'm hiding. Hiding place site. I mean, to be honest, I feel like both of you crawled so I could walk. So thank you if I've never said it, because I mean, Tope is not that much older than me, so I'm not trying to say you're old or anything like that. Because I came into the industry like 2010. I was fascinated with Nollywood. I was trying to release a film back then in LA. And we walked into an office of a distributor, I won't mention their name, and they said to us, because he was trying to like suggest that we needed to do more to get ahead. And maybe we're too slow, we didn't understand, because my boss then just came from the States, I came from England, so we weren't used to such. And then he said something like, are you people lesbians? So they started carrying the rumor that, like, are we lesbians? So they started carrying the rumor around that we were lesbians, so people shouldn't touch us. So I just gave up, and I was like, I'm not doing this. So that's why I say you crawled so we could walk, because I was like, I'm not touching this industry. So what my question is, what did they tell you couldn't do, and you broke down the wall? Like, what was that moment for you that you knew that, like, I need to stand up for women in this industry? Because I realized that in my office is 60% women. Actually, it's like 65% now. We keep shoving them out. Whenever I look at the top 10, at least 70% are women. What I always find very disturbing is that the women are not on the boards of these big companies, but they're in the books. So what can you say to me, who is still fighting this fight that you started? When did you have to break that wall to move ahead?
Well, to start from the beginning of your question, they told me I couldn't do everything. That's a fact. Like I said, I started as an actor. I had the pleasure also of, acting with Mommy on stage. And from there, I just felt like I could do more than just, being the actor, because it felt to me like whatever I'm handed is what I had to do. And because I was very young at the time, I didn't have that choice to say, oh, there were some roles that I turned down, of course, but even the ones I was playing, I felt like I can do more than just, turning down roles or taking roles, and in any way, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. So I got interested in telling the stories. And the first people I mentioned there, that too, of course, were the people that I was working with, and I'm thinking about directing, and the first thing they would do is laugh. Yes, because at the time, we probably had just 2 female directors, I think. That was Amaka Igwe, who nobody saw again as, a woman, because she was huge, she was powerful and everything. And I think the second person was, that I knew then was Bartel, who was also still just training and trying to come up. So I was trying to do what really no woman was doing. And that was always the laughter. Like, okay, why are you thinking of telling stories or trying to direct or produce? It's hard though, and that's the first thing they would always say. And I'm like, okay, but you are doing it. So what makes it impossible for me to do as a woman? Say, just stay with acting, or modeling, that's okay for women, So I was told that over and over again. But as a young woman trying to get into that, instead of it deterring me, it made me stronger. It made me even more stubborn to say, I'm going to do this because I don't see what is gender related in telling stories. I didn't see it, They say, oh, it's very technical. I don't see why that, is the place of a man to do what is technical. So that drove me even further to prove that it's possible. I had so many things against me. I was young. I was coming from being an actor. I didn't have a technical background, but I said I was going to do it. So for me, it just spurred me to study more, learn more, be more aggressive in order to just prove that this is possible. Eventually I did. I kept saying it until I became it. Do you know I want to be a director? Do you know I'm trying to be a director? So I was doing my personal work behind. I was studying and doing all of that, but I hadn't been given the chance yet. But I kept putting myself in the place of learning and believing that one day it would, become a reality. The good part of the story is I was encouraged by someone like Amaka Igwe, who was already doing it, but she was revered and feared. And, she was like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. I said, okay, I can. So I kept talking about it. And a few men that I spoke with, someone like Mr. Femi Odubemi, who was one of the few people who did not laugh and said, okay, you want to do this? No problem. Join the director's training. We will train you to become a director, and let's see where you go with that. So I joined them. I wasn't afraid. I was always the only girl in the room. This series I'm talking about was Tinsel. That's like where I started the director's training. Till date, I don't think there has still been another female director hired on that show. That show has been on, since when? 2007 or 2006. Till date, there hasn't been another female director after I left Tinsel. That says something, But we do have women coming up now, but I was told I couldn't do everything. And I decided I was going to do everything, Mimi. Because I am, a lot of young female directors today have come to me to say, they call me Mama T. Mama T, as you are doing this, me too, I can do it, And on every job I do, I take them on. Do you want to learn? Come with me on set. Do you want to learn? Come with me on set. I regularly have workshops and do things like that. You know, long story short, you don't listen to what people say. You listen to the voice inside of you. I don't know where I got that strength from, but I just hate being told that I can't do things. You know, and that was my strength of, I'm going to keep pushing and we're going to keep doing this. But what you don't realize at that point is that there are people watching you and people looking at you and believing that if she can do it, I can do it. And that's something I've heard repeated over the years, you know, by young girls who come and say, you know, I was studying film, I didn't know it was a thing until I saw you doing it. Or, oh, I wanted to study medicine, I really didn't want to do it until I saw you doing it, and then I felt it was possible, and I went to study film, and now I'm a director. So, you know, that in a nutshell is pretty much how my journey started and got me up to where I am today, of just not stopping and setting a goal for yourself, keeping your eyes on the goal and not listening to the noise. And you have done amazing for yourself, Mimi. You started in 2010. You're the head of production of the biggest in Nigeria. You're controlling the stories being told. You're controlling the stories being released in the cinemas. That is greatness. That right there is inspiration to a lot of young women coming after you. You're looking at me, but there's so many women looking at you right now and thinking, if Mimi can do it, I can do it as well. So kudos to you as well, Mimi, and keep doing what you're doing and inspiring young women.
Yes, yes. Okay. Ms. Taiwo, did you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, the point you made was that you don't see women on major boards. Well, that's your responsibility. Those of you who are distributing things, and those of you who are making films, you have powerful women in the stock exchange, you have them in banks, Aboshika, for instance, you have these people in insurance. Are you projecting them to the population? Or are we just projecting youth and beauty and all the people who are chasing fame? So if our films are more substantial, dealing with ideas, which is progressing our status, women in particular, then we say they're powerful. If they're powerful, why is it that people are so contemptuous of most women when it comes to work? Because it is how we project our women. We project our women as playthings. I think we should stop this nonsense. Women are not playthings, because as you project yourself is how everybody will see you. Who's going to vote for a Nigerian? Who's going to vote for a woman in Nigeria as president, as governor? I get so upset when I see somebody is governor and then they have a woman as deputy. For God's sake. Now, what are you doing in entertainment to say that these are powerful women, and the people that they're getting as their deputy could themselves be governors? But would you women even consider them as capable of that kind of leadership? It's entertainment. It's the way you're projecting women to the population, to your men, so your men don't take you for anything. And look at those that are in government itself. They're running around behind their men like little chickens. But because everybody is thinking, well, you know, are we going to give her leadership? So they recruit women mainly to get women to go to the polling booths to vote for them. Are you not seeing this? But they would not vote for women because they think that, you guys think we are emancipated. I think that's a delusion. And we can address it in entertainment. Please, let's change our world. Let's set the world on fire.
Yes, and with that, let's set it on fire. We're thankful for both of you, Taiwo and Tope, for being here and for this great conversation. So we're going to end our talk right now, but there's a screening downstairs of Nollywood in Focus in the lecture hall on S2 on the elevator. We would love for you to come to that screening, and we also have events tomorrow. So please say hello to these amazing people on your way out, and thank you for coming. Good night.